So I've had this car for roughly 3,500 miles. I've owned it just over a month. I drive a lot. Well, the thing is, with a car like this, you know, a simple trip to the store becomes multi-state cruise. That's just how things are when you have a convertible. Can't help it. You know, since I bought this car, I have had one legitimate problem, one legitimate actual mechanical failure, and it was a pretty common one. The clutch slave cylinder, which is located, if you look right inside there, maybe you can't see it, maybe you can. No, you really can't. But you can see it without the camera in the way and without the wheel in the way. The slave cylinder, which is the, you've got a master and a slave with the hydraulic clutch. The master is mounted to the firewall and is what your clutch pedal connects to. And when you press the master cylinder, the fluid is forced through some steel lines all the way to the slave cylinder where it actually pushes the clutch in, disengaging it in the process. And what happens to those slave cylinders on really any car with a hydraulic clutch, over time they begin to leak, and you could be sitting at a traffic light and all of a sudden your clutch begins to engage all on its own very slowly. That's a problem. Fortunately, I was able to replace both master and slave cylinders for, drum roll please, $40. It took me less than half an hour to install and bleed the hydraulic system, and I was off and running. I did it in my parents' driveway. All I had to do was jack it up just enough to get the passenger's wheel off. Now here's another shot of it, and there it is. It's that little thing with the red cap on it. And if I focus on that real quick, see if my camera will do that. It won't. But okay, oh there we go. That's the sucker right there. That little thing with the cap on it. Anyway, replacing it is a snap. It can be done, and that by itself you could probably do in 10 minutes. The master cylinder is located right over here, and I also did that at the same time. But that is working smoothly. Very happy with all that. But I've done some other stuff to this car since I bought it. And mostly just, you know, maintenance items. I cleaned the mass airflow sensor. As you all probably know, I did a timing belt, water pump, radiator, belts, hoses, seals, gaskets, all that. I did that when I first got the car, and so far no issues there. No coolant loss, no leaks. And most of what I did on the front end here was just for routine maintenance, just to prevent something from failing, you know. But the clutch slave cylinder failure was kind of a surprise, a kind of a reminder of the fact that I'm driving a 25-year-old car. So one of the things I want to stress to you guys and gals is just how easy it is to work on a Miata. This car, I've worked in a lot of cars in my 34 years on planet Earth, and my dad was an auto mechanic, so I helped him a lot when I was a kid growing up, and I can tell you that of all the cars that I've ever worked on, this one's the easiest because everything is accessible. The powertrain is packaged in such a way that does not inhibit or prohibit easy access to key service components. Obviously, if you have to do a head gasket, it's a little more involved, but everything beyond that is something you can do with simple hand tools. You know, go over to Harbor Freight, get yourself a basic mechanics tool set, and you can do just about anything to this car that you need done. Just be sure to document your work for the next person who owns the car, because I don't know what has and has not been done to this car outside of routine oil changes. Of which it's due for another oil change, because I've been driving the hell out of this thing. You know, you Miata fanatics out there, you're probably looking at this, shaking your head, and, you know, because I am putting miles on a very low mile car here, and they are going up in value with low miles. They're going up in value, but I don't care. I didn't buy the car to look at it. I bought it to enjoy it, and that's exactly what I'm doing with it. And I also did a PCV valve, plugs and wires, and yeah, I don't think I've left any stone unturned as it pertains to routine maintenance. I've caught up on everything except the fuel filter. I have the filter, but I just haven't done it yet. It's located right under the car. So, as for paint, I haven't done anything to the paint other than wax. I think I have 3 coats of wax on this car. I did touch up all the little stone chips that I could find. There's a new one that wasn't there. I'll have to do something about that. I got all the stone chips taken care of, and there's a good reason for that, because when I go to store the car in the winter, it's going to be put in a storage unit, but it's also going to be covered, and I don't want, if there's any moisture that happens to form while the car is in storage, what can happen to these stone chips is they can rust, and that just, nobody wants that. So as of right now, this car has no rust anywhere that I can see. I even looked inside the rocker panels, and I found that they were absolutely spotless on the inside, which is pretty good. One of the first things I did, that I would call a modification of any kind, would be these door sill plates. These are necessary for any Miata, actually any car in general. My daily driver Hyundai has them. And what they do is they protect the door sills from being scratched up. Scratches lead to rust. Rust leads to rot. Rot leads to junkyard. $75, $80 or so is what these ended up costing me, but well worth the price. They're the cheapest door sill kit you can buy for the Miata, and I'm actually quite happy with them. They adhere to the sill using double-sided 3M VHB tape, and the seam cover actually kind of goes over, so it goes right over the plate. They actually say Roadster on them. I think you can get these blank, but I got the Roadster ones. I also picked up this leather handbrake boot. This goes over the existing plastic cover, which on every Miata that I've seen so far, that cover has started to become chalky. This one is no exception. This leather cover hides that, and it should hold up to the sun a little better than what was there before. And it looks great. It just kind of contours to it. This is the tight-fitting one that Moss Miata sells. They sell 2 versions. There's the tight-fitting one and the loose-fitting one. I went with the tighter one because it looks less sloppy. It does have 2 loose threads that I will. I'm going to have to singe those off. But I'll deal with that later. You can't really see them, but inside the doors is a set of brand new Third Millennium speakers. They're a company called Third Millennium. They sell nothing but Mazda Miata speakers. They're direct replacement speakers. They're a slight upgrade from the factory. Mine actually was equipped with the upgraded speakers from the factory. They're a polycone Pioneer one-way speaker. They're not the two-way type that I put in there. That's what this car came with from the factory. They were starting to get a little bad sounding. The surrounds were beginning to detach from the basket, so that's what necessitated the replacement. But you can't see them, but they're there. The Third Millennium, I believe they're the M800 speakers that I bought. Little pricey at about $80 a set, but really not that bad in the grand scheme of things. So, if your Miata is equipped with a manual transmission, be it a 5 or even a 6-speed, and you have shift quality issues, that is, the transmission grinds going into really any of its gears, there is a possibility that you have any one of a variety of problems that are causing this. Number one would be the most likely, and that is a failing clutch hydraulic system. Now, I in fact had a failing clutch slave cylinder, which I did replace. You could also have air in the clutch hydraulics, which can be bled out very easily. Another problem is worn synchronizers.
That is common on these Miatas, especially the first generation, and even on low mileage cars, if the car was abused or driven improperly or poorly. There's a third possibility, and that is that the transmission is filled with the wrong gear oil. Now, this car did in fact have a little bit of a grinding problem, especially in third and fourth gear. And right after I bought the car, I had the transmission oil changed. And it turns out they put the wrong stuff in. They put GL5 in there. It requires GL4. Synchromesh transmissions do better with GL4, well, especially the older ones. Now, what I ended up doing was, again, I had it changed and they put the wrong stuff in, which made the grinding even worse. It wasn't until I found a forum post that detailed exactly what oil to use, and that turns out to be a Motorcraft gear oil from the local Ford dealership. It's $22 a quart from my dealership, and I had it replaced. I actually brought it to a Mazda dealership because I didn't want to do the job in my driveway, and I didn't know who else to trust. I don't have any local mechanics that I can trust with my car, so I figured I'd bring it to some place that works on Miatas all day long. And so they put the Motorcraft oil in for me, and I was on my way. It took about a couple hundred miles for my transmission to start improving, and wouldn't you know it, it actually shifts pretty smoothly now. It's not perfect, but it's very smooth, and after I did the slave cylinder, it made it even better. So definitely, before you start pricing out new transmissions for your Miata, look at those issues. In fact, a combination of all three could be the culprit, but the first two, meaning the oil and the clutch hydraulics, should be addressed before you start looking at new transmissions. The other problem that I addressed with this one is the shifter turret rubber boots. There's one that goes between the shifter itself and the turret, and there's one that goes between the body of the vehicle and the shifter. So what the first seal, or the first boot, is designed to keep the turret oil clean and in the transmission. The second one is designed to isolate noise and heat from the transmission tunnel from the body, from the interior. And almost every Miata that's more than a few years old is going to have tears in either one or both of these boots. Turns out both of mine were torn, so I replaced them both, as well as changed the oil in the shifter turret. So I'm very pleased with the shift quality at this point. Again, it's not perfect, but we are dealing with a car that's 25 years old and has had multiple owners. So there's a possibility of some slight synchro wear, especially on the third gear synchro, but I'm not worried about it. It shifts pretty well, and I'm happy with it. If it ever fails, I'll just put a transmission in it. Not a big deal. It's only money. Money grows on trees, right? That was a joke. So let's continue on and see what else we can talk about.
And of course, most of you guys already know that I did rebuild the airbag control module myself. And I'm happy to report that the airbag light is not coming up with any errors. It comes on for a system check and then goes out. All's well. Hopefully I'll never have to find out whether it really works or not. Crossing my fingers on that one. And I took this car to a car show, a proper Miata show. There's one every year in Brookline, Mass. And it's at the Lars Anderson Auto Museum. I was car number 173 out of just over 200, and so I was a late arrival. My car wasn't really voted for any awards, but so I didn't win any awards. But it was a good time, and I got to see a lot of other Miatas. And I actually, whenever you own a car like that, a collectible or a classic car, it's always a natural thing to compare it with other cars, kind of see where you're at, And I've got to say, in terms of cars that were still factory original, which is what I really wanted, my car looked pretty good in comparison to the other cars at the show. I'm not saying I had the best car. There was actually one with around 16 or 20,000 miles on it. The car was absolutely mint, but the paint looked just as good as mine did. Actually, my paint and the paint on that car were almost the same. That car had more dents in it, but it was a base model. You know, it was the black cloth interior. It was, I think it had the optional AC as well. But it was a fairly base model version of the Miata, and it had about between 16 and 20,000 miles, and it was very low miles. And the car was actually for sale. I didn't call to see what the price was, but I was kind of curious. I don't think I'd buy it, but you know, it's always good to know what they're actually selling for. But mine was, I think, the only red C package out of 200 Miatas from New England at the show. I think mine was one of the only ones that had this option package. It was one of 3 cars in the entire event that had that stereo, the Mazda Sensory Sound System with Bodysonic. It was one of 3 cars. The other 2 were LEs, the black on red LEs that had that stereo in it. But I looked at every car, all 200 of them, and none of them had, all but 3. Mine was number 3 that had that stereo. And from my forum queries, I'm finding that an MSSS stereo that still works is worth its weight in gold. One of these stereos actually sold for around $700 in working condition, and mine is in full working condition. So I'm keeping it in the car for now. I am considering pulling it out and preserving it somewhere, and putting something more modern in there. But I really love the stereo in this car. It sounds great. I brought this thing to a car show, to a drive-in movie theater with this girl that I've been seeing for a while. And actually, it was a pretty cool event. So there is a drive-in movie theater in my area. It's been open for 50 years. And my parents ended up going, and some friends of mine with their kid ended up going, and we all had our own cars. And it was a good time. This car is the ultimate drive-in theater car, because you've got this stereo with these headrest speakers and the low-frequency transducers in the seat backs. Watching Jurassic Park, it was an experience. It was awesome. And the car just had the right. I mean, you could just see the entire screen through the windshield. It was pretty cool. I consulted with my uncle, who used to do automotive upholstery work professionally, and he worked for one of the few shops in the area that actually did convertible top replacements and repair. And I asked him, what do I do with this top? He said to use Formula 303 protectant. He said that that stuff works very well to prevent dry rotting or dry cracking of these vinyl tops. But he also said to regularly lubricate all pivot points on these to prevent the bushings from failing. The product that he suggested I use is this stuff. This is Remington Dry Lube. It's actually a gun lubricant. It's made with Teflon, or a Teflon knockoff. Surflon? Anyway, this is the stuff he said to use. And you spray it on, it goes on and dries completely, leaving a Teflon film in its wake. So he said to spray spray the latches. As long as they're still functioning properly, and mine are. He said this stuff will prevent unnecessary wear of the latch assembly. So I'm going to put the straw on there, in fact. And we're going to get in there a little better. You got to shake the stuff. He also said to spray it into the zipper on the rear window, because it also allows for the zipper to glide a little bit easier, thus reducing wear. And I just did it, and oh my god, What a difference. Anyway, the white lithium grease that a lot of people are using isn't the right stuff to use. You can use it, but it's messy, and it tends to dry out, and, well, this Teflon will remain there for quite a while, and you'll have to do it again eventually, but that's okay. That's all part of maintenance. One more thing I did to this car, which was an idea that I got from the Miata show, and a few other cars had this. I believe when the cars were new, there was a dealer optional upgrade, which added some interior lighting to the first generation Miata. And you can see that there's one map light right there. All Miatas have that light, and the earlier builds had an additional light right there, like right about here. For whatever reason in '94 they ditched that other light. So there are two dummy covers that go right, well, obviously I spoiled it, but here and over here. And there, wouldn't you believe it, there's a light kit that you can buy that installs right in that in those plates. So that's it. So I added that light kit from Miata, and it switches with the passenger side light, and obviously when you close the doors, it goes off just like that. To me, that actually was something that I had been kind of pining for, because this car has very poor interior lighting, and when it's nighttime and you're fumbling around in the dark looking for something that you dropped on the floor, you can't find it without using a flashlight. But now that I have lighting in this car, beyond the original map light, I can find things in the dark very easily. And because I have no choice but to store the car outdoors, it is going to rain tomorrow, and this is my solution. I tried to keep the car covered, and I have another cover for it, but I'm not happy with it. The other cover is just a little bit too loose for this thing, so when the wind picks up, it really could potentially buff the paint in a bad way. So I had a custom cover ordered. This is it was a little bit of money, but I think it'll do a better job of protecting the car. It's less likely to move around. It's made of a better material, better quality material than the other cover, and it's red. I got my choice of colors, and I picked red because why not? The thing that drives me nuts, though, this is from Cover. What's it called again? Hold on a second here. It is Covercraft makes it. Covercraft. Clever planned words like Covercraft. Yeah. Anyway, it's the Covercraft covers came highly recommended by other classic car owners, and I figured, what the hell? See what it does. They're made to order, so it took about 2 weeks to get this thing in. In the meantime, I had to buy a cover from the local auto parts store, and that one I'm going to give away to someone hopefully soon. Just get it out of my... It's in the trunk of my Hyundai, so I want to get it out of there and make it gone. But this thing, I'm hoping, will do the job to keep the car good and dry. I don't want it getting rained on a lot because, you know, not only do you get water deposits, but having the car sit out here in the storm and rain and all that, just, I don't know, just doesn't do it any justice. So, in the winter, it's going in a storage unit, but for now, this is what I got. So, no garage. Oh well. Someday I'll have a garage. Today I don't have one.